Men of Reddit, what's your creepy girl story? Met a girl online. We chat and set up a date. Date goes fine, she's a little weird, a little sheltered but seems nice. Not much chemistry but I think that can take some time, so we give it another go, have a second date. Confirm I have no interest in a relationship with this girl on the second date, so we talk it out, no hard feelings, let's be friends. Fast forward 1.5 years, I'm in my kitchen with some friends getting ready to go out for my birthday dinner when we hear a knock on the door. I go check and no one is there, but there is a box with my name on it. There is a card and some gifts, which would be nice if this girl had ever been to my house before. I had moved since our 2 dates and still have no idea how she found me. You can find out a lot with a phone number, a creepy amount. Once, an acquaintance added me on FB. When I clicked on her profile, it said she was in a relationship with someone. That someone was a fake account of me with my picture. She knew you would see it upon accepting the 4. I feel like that makes it 10x more freaking creepy. Our high school basketball team had a female student manager. When we had games at other schools, she would always come up with a reason to need to get something in the locker room when we were showering. But we were so used to her, I guess no one said anything. Coaches probably should have stepped in there. Girl in my dorm. She had a crush on my roommate. My roommate clearly didn't like and told her several times. Things got out of hand and there were times where my roommate would come running back to the room yelling, "Lock the door, lock the door," and moments later the girl and her friend would try to come barge in without permission. What's creepy is this next part. Apparently one night we accidentally left our room unlocked and she decided to sneak in and play rub our heads. We didn't wake up, but her roommate told us what she did a couple days later. I haven't seen her in about a year and I'm quite glad. She rubs your head softer now. This younger girl who I never even spoke to once in high school had a crush on me. I got a note from her in my locker asking if I wanted to go out with her. I had no idea of how to get it back to her, so I just wrote no and taped it to my locker. Then she started following me everywhere. I would try to talk to her, but she would just keep walking away, pretending I wasn't talking to her. This goes on for like 2 years. Then I was hanging out by myself one day around the neighborhood, and she comes walking up with 3 guys who wanted to kick my butt for some dumb unrelated stuff. She somehow found out about it and brought them to me. After an embarrassing scene with me diffusing the situation with these angry gentlemen, they leave, and she finally sits down on the curb right next to me and starts flirting. All I could do was just stare at her enormous bangs with a WTF expression until she got embarrassed and left. So I just wrote no and taped it to my locker. Props on that response, man. I was bored once at a small, local festival and didn't want to be there, so I just got a drink and started walking around aimlessly when I noticed a fire breather. The display was interesting and she was pretty hot. When she was on break she went to get a drink and we started talking. She seemed nice. We had a laugh, but her break was up and she resumed her display, so I left her to it and continued to wander around. 5 minutes later security was called to her display. Turns out some crazy girl whom I had never met before was following me around the festival and assaulted the fire breather. She had claimed that me and Crazy, were together and fire breather was trying to break us up. She was hot. I was at a friend's birthday party for her dog. Probably was just an excuse to have people over and get drunk. And another friend, let's call her M, is also there. I had known M for a couple of years, but I only really ever see her a couple of times a year. She is very drunk, and also very married. Her husband was also at the same party. At one point in the night, she asks me if I have a girlfriend. I did not. If I am looking for a girlfriend, where I'd been looking for a girlfriend, etc. Then she says that I had been looking in all the wrong places and that, if I wanted a good girl, I should let her know. During this conversation, she also kept trying to grab my hand, and so at one point I made sure to always be holding a handful of mini pretzels in both of my hands as a sort of excuse to not be able to hold hands. I can't hold hands if I am holding pretzels. Logic. Then finally she says, "I like you. I seldom wipe. I really like you." I'm like, okay. This repeats for a while until she says stop saying okay. It makes me feel like you think I'm bullshitting. Then she keeps following me around the room and keeps trying to make me dance with her until I leave. Her husband was pretty much always in the same room as us, no more than a few feet away while this was all happening. Thought I was crazy and imagining it all until another friend asked me on the same night as we were leaving, was M trying to hit on you? I can't hold hands if I'm holding pretzels. Modern problems require modern solutions. I started going to a new doctor. The receptionist was cute, so I flirted a bit in a waiting room with other patients around. It was pretty innocent. She reciprocated. I figured it was all in good fun. She escalated a bit. Stuff like scheduling me for days she was there, calling me directly with reminders, etc. Then she went into the records, got my cell number, and started texting me, telling me she wants to meet up, she's not happy with her husband, they never have sex anymore, etc. I noped out as fast as I could. In the US, this is a major crime. If she's treating your records this way, she's not respecting other people's privacy either. I was in New Orleans watching some street performers go crazy and a mom came up behind me and fully grabbed both of my butt cheeks. I was 18 and standing next to both of my parents and she said, "Hey, you remind me of my son," which is probably one of the weirdest things to say in that moment. She befriended my younger sister just to get her to ask her to a sleepover. I woke up in the middle of the night with her laying in bed with me. I was 17 yo. She was 13. Almost this exact thing happened to me, except it was the daytime and the offender was my parents' cleaning lady's kid. She was 13 or 14 and I was 18. She would try to wrestle with me every goddamn time she showed up, and every goddamn time I had to pry her off. I found out later that she had told everyone at her school that we had sex, so that was fun. A few months ago, I was walking home from school when this drunk middle-aged woman grabbed me by the arm, wrapped me in a bear hug against a wall, and started grinding on me. I wasn't interested. I had an exam the next morning, and I was just trying to get home. She wouldn't let me go, and she forced my hands onto her breasts and in between her legs. Luckily this was over clothes. She also started punching me for no reason as well as saying doing extremely racist Asian stereotypes. I'm Asian. Eventually, I got away, but I've never fully recovered from the experience and I've basically never been able to talk about it with IRL friends. Doubt I ever will. Not a guy myself, but one I dated had a couple fun stories. One was a girl he got set up with by friends on a blind date. As they went out to dinner, they passed a jewelry store, and she insisted on going in so they could pick out rings for when they get engaged. He paid for dinner and noped right out. The second one went better until he took her back to her place, where she went to the kitchen, pulled a nice big, sharp chef's knife, and told him he was staying the night. He said, "I did what any red-blooded American male would do," agreed, but said I needed to go to the bathroom, where I promptly crawled out the window and never saw her again. I did what any red-blooded American male would do, agreed, but said I needed to go to the bathroom, where I promptly crawled out the window and never saw her again. My man. Dude knows how it is. During my last year of high school I would tutor students after school. One day about halfway through the year a new girl came in and sat next to me. The first thing she said was something along the lines of, "Do you wanna see my birth control?" She had an implant in her arm and showed me where it was. She then felt my arm and told me I was hairy. For the rest of the time she kept prying for personal info like who my friends were and where I lived. I didn't see her in tutoring after that, but one day during lunch she came up to my table where I was just chatting with my friends and inserted herself into the conversation before leaving randomly. I heard a few days later that she was suspended for either having drugs or a knife in her backpack. TBH. She sounds like socially awkward or something. Maybe she just wanted friends. I've got two. First one was when I was 15. I was walking past my school and about to cross the road when a trio of drunk women in their 40s or 50s started hassling me about how good I looked. pressing me in against the wall and surrounded me so that I couldn't get out and holding me back while they copped feels. Not a fun experience, especially when you can't even tell people about it or how creeped out it's left you, because as a guy you should somehow be proud when women 3 times your age are grabbing your dong through your trousers against your will. The other one was about 4 years ago. I was 22 and asked a girl I'd met out. She seemed nice at first. Met her in a little cafe while I was waiting to meet some friends and we got talking about Pokemon and some other stuff for 20 or 30 minutes before adding each other on Facebook. Only weird thing was that in that time she told me she'd been raped by her ex. I thought maybe she was just being open about it as a way of dealing with the trauma, so I let it slide and messaged her a bit later to see if she'd be interested in a date. She told me that she already had a boyfriend but that she'd love to hang out as friends, which was fair enough, so I agreed to that and we met up a few days later. She'd brought her boyfriend with her, which I expected. I got the sense he wasn't too comfortable with me, which I can understand, but what threw me was she also brought her ex. I can't 100% say it was the same ex she'd mentioned, but he really gave off that vibe with the way he talked and behaved around her. She kept on talking about dead babies and abortions obsessively as well. You couldn't change the subject at all. Creeped me the heck out, so I just sat there with a smile and acted civil while internally going, please don't kill me, and I haven't spoken to her since. I've had a couple semi-stalkerish women who creeped on me, which is weird because I'm not even good looking. But my favorite creepy girl story was just a one-off funny moment. When I was 22, I was hanging out with a couple friends just grilling and drinking when one of them was suddenly like, do you guys wanna go to a costume party? Naturally, we were like yes, so we slapped together some quick costumes and hopped in an Uber. We showed up to this place and it was less a costume party and more 6 people in an apartment wearing costumes. But there was beer and a dog, so I was happy. Anyway, we spent the evening playing board games with this group of people who seem just as confused as we are. The entire night, there's this one girl who's sitting next to me on the couch, but she hasn't said a single word. Not one. I don't think much of it. Some people are shy, it's whatever. But then, during a lull in the party, out of nowhere, she gets closer to me, looks me dead in the eye, and whispers, I like blew it, then shifts back to her spot like nothing happened. I turned to my friend and was just like, we have to leave. I still think about that night sometimes. But then, during a lull in the party, out of nowhere, she gets closer to me, looks me dead in the eye, and whispers, I like blew it, then shifts back to her spot like nothing happened. This has to be the most creepiest story of the whole thread. Also the funniest. I was accused of this. My husband and I moved and we happened to buy in a neighborhood that adjoined the one my ex and his new wife bought. Weird. Many years and many children later we moved further away. Guess who lives across the street? It was mildly weird until his wife and I met at the mailboxes one day and talked. Now our kids are friends and ride bikes and play basketball and such. Not so much as the girl herself, but to her mom. I dated this girl back in high school and I went over to her house a few times just to hang out and such. But her mom made me incredibly uncomfortable by asking a billion different questions about my past relationships, my intentions with her daughter, even when I last looked at P, etc. etc. She had to be in the same room as us at all times. She also had complete control over my girlfriend's phone as well, so she monitored every single message her and I sent back and forth. Obviously, due to this, that relationship didn't last long. Mission accomplished. The mom, probably. In elementary school there was a new Spanish girl who had a crush on me and would literally be non-stop staring at me and following me. Me and my friends tested it. In class they would look and see she'd be staring at me. In recess we went to the very far corner of the field and she followed. So I went back to the school wall and she followed. So I told the teachers and they finally got her to stop following me. She disappeared a few days later. Nobody knew where she went. She finally hit max level for sneak. There was this girl who was a freshman when I was a senior. I had heard of her through friends and I met her once or twice. I guess she developed a crush on me. A mutual friend told me that she thought I liked her and I said it was a misunderstanding and that I was only interested in being friends. Next thing I know, this girl is showing up at my work multiple times a shift, and when I go to sit out at my car on break she would come up and try to talk to me if I had my windows down. She was transferred to a school for people with problems, and there she would take people's phones and try to call me, text me, or message me on social media. Eventually they stopped giving her access to technology and the text stopped. With the recent coronavirus and the closing of every school in my state, this girl was sent back to live with her dad, and I saw her in my store the other day. I don't think she saw me, and I hope she has moved on. I was nice to a freshman girl when I was a senior. She told me that her 2 boyfriends did not satisfy her sexually, and implied that perhaps I could. It was a little creepy. I think she was lying to spark your interest that she's active. This girl followed me home after a date and stayed outside my house, and when I came out the next morning and acted like it was suiwaru funny we bumped into each other, I told her I will call the cops, and she ran. I was living in New Orleans and this older woman grabbed my nuts from behind. I naturally freaked out, and she laughed and went, "Oh, it's this game we're playing. WTF kind of game is that?" I was so shocked I kinda just walked away. I was like 13-14 years old, was playing Gaia Online, some lame social networking game from like 2002, and met some girl. We hit it off and started chatting over AIM. Definitely did the cringy cybering thing too. Well, eventually she comes clean that she's actually like late 20s, like 28 or something. Being a frisky 14-year-old dude, that didn't bother me one bit. So then we start video chatting and she's like, fully masturbating on cam with me. Again, 14-year-old me is not seeing an issue with this. Eventually she starts talking about coming to visit so we can actually have sex. Again, not seeing the issue beyond the fact that she really was not very attractive, but even still I didn't think she was serious until she emails me a copy of her flight itinerary. At this point I panicked and blocked her, deleted my AIM and stayed away from the computer for like 6 months and never heard from her again. I've been there. Looking back I feel a mixture of embarrassment and disgust. I'm embarrassed that I believed what these older women were saying and disgusted with the fact they'd talk like that to someone who was barely even a teenager. I feel for you, OP. Sorry you were taken advantage of by that person. Not a man but the creepy girl. My dad told me that when I was little and had something bothering me at night, I would sneak up to him and stare at him until he woke up. He described my white nightgown, plushie and the moonlight lantern light hitting me as very unsettling. My son would do that crap all to me all the time when he was little, just in that almost asleep period. One time I just saw a shape next to me and I screamed, and he woke up and ran to his room screaming. Another time he walked in on my wife and I having sexy time with the lights on. He just started laughing and walked back to his room. I was so glad when he stopped sleepwalking. I had a drunk woman pinch my behind at Universal Studios when I was 16. I was in line for Harry Potter Escape from Gringotts. When I turned to look at her, confused, she tried to act coy. I just turned back and tried to ignore her, but she kept looking at me. We were kids, early teens. I thought she was mad cute. She was telling me how once she pushed a boy she liked off the swings and he broke his arm. She was bragging about it, and she liked me now. Cool. I thought, I will now proceed to never see you again. I had a friend who went absolutely crazy after her boyfriend broke up with her, cutting, trying to force him to get back together, getting him kicked out of the group to isolate him only for it to backfire and throw a fit, etc. And that was only freshman year. When he started dating another girl from our group senior year, she pretended to be cool, only to lie to the girl and try and convince her to break up with him because he was definitely texting her last night. Oh, and also Jet told her he hated her, and that she was ugly, and that he actually loved her. Crazy girl, and was only with the new girl to make her jealous. Many other things happened too. A random guy at the bar called her friend a S and ran off. I guess I looked enough like him, so I got 3 haymakers to the face. I managed to avoid boxing a female in a public bar, which was my goal, and things seemed to subside. She later cornered me in the shitter. It was a single person shitter. I guess I forgot to lock the door. I was informed that I should leave with her and got back to her place or I would be accused of some pretty heinous crap. The bartender saw her on the prowl and sent the bouncer after. He told her to frick off and not come back. On her way out, things got racial. Big words were flying. I was an N-word lover. There were sand N-words everywhere. All of us were remanded to the countries of our origin. She was waiting on the street when I left and tried to follow me, but I just jogged away and she tripped and started crying. It was tragic, yet also funny. I am currently in that creepy girl stage. I've wanted to break up with her for a bit now, but every time I try to bring it up she says you're the only reason I haven't killed myself, and honestly I don't know what to do anymore. Break up with her and call 911 if she threatens suicide. You're not a medical professional equipped to deal with that. It was my ex-girlfriend. I didn't realize she was creepy until I tried to end it and failed. First few times were my fault for being weak-willed, dumb, all that stuff. She offered me sex or something else, or just treated me kindly for a while, and I thought things can be okay again and I resumed the relationship. At some point I actually learned my lesson though, but it was at that point I realized she was actually my crazy ex. And it was sad. The stories are many and crazy, but long and short of it is, she told everyone we were together more than a year after I had really ended it. She enrolled at my university, giving up her dream of a different school she'd always wanted to go to and actually got into, just so she could cross paths with me. Enrolled in a class I was teaching a lab for without me knowing. Showed up randomly at my parents' house. Told them we were together still. It worked the first time. Oh my word. I can't begin to fathom how weird it would be to keep seeing her out of context. At my buddy's cottage in Muskoka one summer, he knew this girl that had a cottage there as well. We all were around the ages of 14-17. This one girl was talking about how she liked to pee in cat litter and then form the cat litter into dildo shape and freeze it. There have been some terrible stories in this thread, but this one made me raise an eyebrow quizzically. Was at a bar with a large group of friends when this girl who was not affiliated with our group came up to me and started unbuttoning my shirt. After a few buttons, she just slid her hands around my torso. I backed off and the girls in our friend group blocked her from coming into contact with me again. The one and only time I used Tinder, I hooked up with this girl in Arkansas. The sex only lasted until she begged me to come inside her, which is a hard thing to hear I guess. But not from someone you just met. I told her I'm not gonna do that and she pushes me off and starts crying, saying things like I just want baby so someone will love me. I felt kinda bad for her, so I talked her down, bought her some food, and she thanked me and went home. Nothing too weird about that. I just figured she was going through a rough time. It happens. Until about a week later I come home from work and my front door is open. It looked like someone tried to yank it off the hinges. Then I noticed her car parked across the street. This little psycho had gotten crap-face drunk, drove to my house, broke in, and was sleeping naked in my bed. Cops were called and she panicked and left. Don't know what happened to her after that, but I sure as frick never used Tinder again. In 5th grade she lived like a few houses away and could see me in my backyard from her window. While I played baseball out back she videoed me and even hired her friend to record and talk to me a bunch. Shudder. I went out with some friends to watch a game at a bar. Once leaving to head back home as we are all walking out, this group of girls clearly hammered at like 11 in the morning walks in and beelines towards our group. One runs out and says you should come with me and jams her fingers straight up and into my armpit. It was pretty warm out so I was sweaty, and this girl takes her hand out after I move her arm away from me and then sniffs her fingers and winks at me. According to my friends, I have never had a more puzzled look on my face. What in the frick? Dated a girl who was close with her cousin. I slowly learned everyone hated her cousin and they were afraid to tell me to avoid the girl-cousin combo because it was no good. Kept dating the girl, and cousin started be around more. It was fine at first and then the lying started. Never in my life had I met a compulsive liar before, so I couldn't believe that no one was saying anything when this girl blatantly lied. Crazy lies. Insane lies that made no sense. Non-stop. Constant. Really weird lies. I once fell out of an airplane level lies. It got worse. I told girl I don't want to be around cousin anymore. Girl understands. Cousin gets my number and then texts me saying she just drove by my friend's house and girl was there. She's cheating on me. Cousin says. Cousin lives 45 minutes away and would never be driving near my friend's house. I tell her never communicate with me again. She says but I thought we were friends. Block number. Dump girl. Run away. Girl was hitting on me at a bar. I was pretty dismissive and finally she said, oh, I'll let you buy me a drink. I responded saying I was married and please leave me alone. She called me a pig and stormed off, and later in the night we caught her following us to another club. Threatened to call the police on her and she stopped. It was when I was back in school. There was this girl who used to sit just behind my seat. She was good looking but was very distant from everybody and talked with nobody. Her social skills was zero. But I tried talking to her. We get to know each other. I thought we became friends. We started sitting on the same seat. One day she said, I know why you're friend with me. I said, why? She says, you want this right? Then she pulls her skirt slightly up and panty down and showed me the P whose image is imprinted in my memory. We were 16 by the way. Then she giggles. I looked at her exhibition and then back into her eyes. I could see a psychotic smile on her face. She was the creepiest girl I've ever met in my entire life. I trying to work out how you both sat in the same seat. Quite impressive emo. I once was hanging out with someone. We were on a getting to know each other phase. Nothing exclusive. I showed her a magic trick. For me it was a very simple magic trick. After the magi trick she started to freak out, saying that she was not into witch stuff or black magic. I tried to explain to her that it was just a simple trick. Since then I got a weird vibe. After that I guess my spidey senses were more active since then, and I decided to tell her that I rather not continue the relationship since I started to notice patterns that I didn't like. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.